Today, I'm going to be seeing if I can build a KNEX roller coaster in a 10 by 10 space. So let's get started. Alright, so the first thing I obviously had to do was build the actual structure so I could see how much room I had to work with. The structure itself is 10 by 10 granite or yellow rods. The structure took so many pieces, like this actually took so long to build, but now that we have the structure done, we can start working on the real coaster. I built the station, but I didn't build a brake run because I wanted to save as much room as possible. I started building backwards, so I didn't run into the issue unlike my last project where the car simply wouldn't make it over the final couple of elements. I started off by building airtime hill into a turnaround which will lead into the next couple of elements. I gave it a little test just to make sure that it would clear the course. I'm already kind of nervous because even the smallest parts of the coaster are already taking up the entire length of the structure. So I built the zero-G roll and it looks terrible. The car is like upside down when it enters the zero-G roll, which is not supposed to happen. So I think I'm just going to replace it with an airtime hill or something like that. So I replaced the zero-G roll with the trick track double down and I started working on the supports for the next part of the coaster. I think it's going to be a good idea to plan out the rest of the coaster. So I think I'm going to do a large outer bank around this side of the coaster. Then it's going to be a double down that will lead into the outer bank. Then a giant Immelman. And then a vertical drop because I wanted to save as much space as possible. Alright, so I finished the entire outer bank turnaround. Looks a little bit strange because it has to be a little bit higher up. It's a little bit sunken down, but I think it's okay. The supports ended up taking a little bit more time than I was expecting because the track kind of wraps around the structure. After that, I finished connecting up the structure so I could support the rest of the track. Alright, so I finished a double up, and then I actually decided instead of building an Immelman, I was going to build a Cobra roll. When I test it, doesn't quite make it around, but I think I'll just have to move this support up a little bit so it'll have more strength. So I added extra supports and beefed up the track, and now it successfully makes it over the outer bank turn. Some of the track sections are not fully supported yet, and they can still flex side to side, so I'm going to add in some extra supports for added stability. So I finished editing the rest of the extra supports, and now the only thing left to build is the first drop. Alright, so I finished about half of the first drop, and luckily I was able to use some of the pre-existing support structure to build the drop on. So I went back through and lined the drop with these so that it could be stronger. So the first drop doesn't actually end up going all the way to the ground, otherwise it would have ran into this piece of track right here. For the first drop, I ended up just building higher and higher until the train eventually made it around the Cobra roll. At one point, the structure started leaning, so I just ended up attaching a bunch of rods to anchor the structure. I didn't really expect this to work, but it did. Now that I finished the drop, the coaster was complete. Here are a couple of test runs.